everyone. This is the ninth session where Sally and I continue learning about building software in C#.NET, learning about programming in general, and understanding our engineering standard. And today, Sally and I are going to explore something I didn't even know much about it. The something that was just released very recently, which is something that's called GitHub Codespace. So let me share my screen here with you, and then we'll try GitHub Codespace, together. So what is GitHub Codespace? It basically allows you to go, and if I go into Sally library in here, I don't have to install anything on my local machine. All I really need to do is just to go and just click the period button, the dot, full stop on your keyboard. And as soon as you do that, it will open up your code in a sort of an environment where you can navigate the code, edit the code, and all that kind of good stuff, right? But if you want to run your code, let me zoom in a little bit for people that are on their phones. Let's go a little bit bigger here, like 200% should be fine. What do you think, Sally? Can you see it from here? It should be very visible at this point, huh?
For me now.
Okay, very visible. Okay, perfect. So here's the code. It looks just like Visual Studio, and you got extensions, you got everything going on. It's just like using VS Code, except that it's in the browser. So you don't have to really worry about having your environment set up or any of that. Sally's using a Mac machine. I'm using a Windows machine, but that doesn't matter because we can collaborate, in the cloud on the same environment and use this code, and it feels just like, well, except for the usings in here, this should be, not being green. But anyway, in general, is that it's very similar. Now, what happens here, if you go back to GitHub real quick, you can actually create what we call Codespace, right? So Codespace, let's go here into Sally Library again. If you go to code here and go to Codespace, you'll see that I created a couple in here. I was trying a couple of things, right? So I'll go and manage all, and let me destroy both of them. I'm going to destroy both of them real quick, and then I'm going to start over because I want to show you how does this thing work. If you go back into your environment here, you could go and say Codespaces, and then you go and say new Codespace. And you get to kind of, it learns about your project, and it just, basically really quickly builds a container in the cloud. And the container basically spits out what you can see here in terms of, the environment. So let's see if I can browse color theme here. Visual Studio. There you go. That makes me much more comfortable. Let's zoom in a little bit like this. So here's a zoom in, and now I have the command line. I have my files here on the left side. I can navigate my files. This looks much similar, a lot similar, except that this guy should be, I think, yellow or something. Anyway, what is this? Do you want to install recommended extensions for C Sharp? Yeah, it knows that I'm using C Sharp immediately, boom. And then set color theme, and then this is Visual Studio 2019, boom. It's setting up everything for me. It's very smart and fast. It knows, it knows what would make you comfortable, and it actually learns from your, there you go. Here's the yellow color that I was just asking about. It says, okay, you need these, all of that. And then required asset to build and debug are missing from SAL library, add them. Source C Sharp extension. Sure, why not? So it's going and saying, here's, you need this, and you need this, and you need that. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's go ahead and add all of that stuff. Okay. So here's our project in here. Now I just want to test and see that my project is working as expected. I'm just going to go up into the terminal here, and I'm going to go and say .NET test. So this basically will help me run. Unfortunately, I couldn't figure out a way to install .NET 6, so I had to downgrade that project temporarily to .NET 5 just to get things running. So here's .NET test. It's doing a little bit of restoring the libraries in here, and really, really quick, spitting out some non-nullable stuff. And here you go. You have one pass test right here, and everything else is in place. Okay. Can I clear this? Yes, I can. Okay, perfect. Okay, Sally, let's try this real quick. So last time we talked a little bit about, adding a new test, adding a new capability, right? Let's try this together. You're gonna be the driver. You're gonna be the one guiding me to build the right stuff, and I'm gonna be the one writing the code and all that. So let's say for instance our service here. Let's say my service here, for instance, this is my brokers, and this is my services, and this is iBook service. Okay. let's say we want to build a function, that basically retrieves a book by ID. So I pass the ID to that book and I will go find that book based on its ID, right? How do we go about doing that?
So first,
So we want to return a book, right? I think. All
yeah.
right. Maybe we can go and say retrieve book by ID, right? And I'm going to pass in, what did we say the book model is? Does it have an ID? Yes, it does. Okay, so retrieve book by ID, and I'm going up in here and saying ID, right? That basically means I need to go up in here and write some sort of implementation. Look at this guy already complaining. Does it work if I do control period? Wow, fancy. Okay, so if I click on this guy, implement interface, it will write the failing one for me, right? This is the one that's not implemented, right? That's that piece. Okay, so there's that piece. And then I need to go into my unit tests and write a failing test, right? So I have these tests in here. I'm gonna go and try to write a failing test. But this time, Sally, I'm gonna create new files. And these files, like I'm gonna create a new file in here. I'm gonna call this book service. See, we're trying, Codespace and doing stuff at the same time. Book service test dot logic dot add dot cs. So you see how I'm breaking, this particular test in here to stay in the add section of the test. So this is logic dot add. I'm gonna put that in there. Oop, did I lose that? Hold on a second. Did I lose it? Hold on. X. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back here and do control V. There you go. Now let's see, is it smart enough to, didn't create namespaces or anything for me. That's frustrating. Okay, let me take this whole guy in here and let me just paste this guy here. And then let me take my test. I want my test in here. This is the logic for add. And I don't need all of that set up because I'm breaking my files a little bit, but this guy's gonna be a public partial class. So now this is the add piece. So you see I broke down my tests into different pieces like these, right? And then in here, I want something very similar to that. Can I copy the file? So copy, and then I can go up in here and say paste. Nice, it created a new file. And now instead of add, I'm gonna say retrieve by ID, like this. Okay, and retrieve by ID, needs a brand new test to make it work. So let's try this together. This is just me testing Codespace. We'll dig a little bit deeper on your side, when sharing these things. But let's just go ahead in here and say public void should retrieve book by ID. So there's that guy. And here's a given, here's a when, here's a then, right? And then I need an ID. So here's GUID. Let's see. Here's my guy. I'm gonna go here. What happened? So this is GUID. Random ID equal GUID.new. It's still kind of struggling. So new GUID. If there's no autocomplete, you're kind of screwed because I'm relying so much on memory here. So anyway, GUID and then random, and then this is input book ID that comes from random ID. Great. And then I want the book itself, so that's random book. There you go, book. Come on, random book. Let's just create a new book. I'll talk to you about dynamics and all that kind of cool stuff later. And then here's my storage book that comes from random book. And then the last one here is expected, right? Expected book, storage book. Okay, what should we do next here, Sally? Let's see. What should we do in this case here?
So now we should the setup like
We should set up the mock, right? So this dot mock dot setup, I think. And then this is the broker. And which function should we use for this one? Like which one should I rely on to help me with this function?
storage.
So that's
If
the storage, but
it's,
which, go ahead.
I can see broke.
Uh,
What Oh, you mean which one you want to set up?
Yes, yes, sorry, yes, correct. Which function? We had a bunch of those. Let's go back to the broker and see which one would support my purpose better. I had insert, select all, select by ID, update, and delete, huh?
Going back to remember what, but we had retrieve, yes? Or select. Okay, we need for retrieve, we have to select by ID, yes?
This is the one. That's right. So let's go down here to the test and let's say dot select
Mhm.
by ID, select book by ID. And I'm gonna pass in the input book ID here, and this guy is gonna be returns what? The storage book. Okay, so that's that guy. And then let's move further a little bit. Let me zoom out just one tiny bit because I like to see the whole function. And then in here, what should we do? We should have an actual book, right? What comes back? And
Books.
this book is gonna come from the service, retrieve book by ID, input book ID, right?
Mhm.
Now, what should we do in
Mhm.
here?
All books should be equivalent to
Right.
expect book.
Yep, should.
Mhm.
There you go. Be equivalent to expected book. That's right. And then
Or
what? What should we do then?
verify the storage worker mark.
Yeah, let's verify. Let's verify that. There you
With
go.
book. Uh,
Verify the broker. Come on. It's not too bad, but it's a little broker dot select book by ID with the
book.
input book ID, right? We need to verify that this guy was called only once, right? Times once, like this.
Mhm. Mm,
Okay, what's the last thing to do here, Sally?
other calls.
Yeah, verify, no other calls. We want to verify, no other calls happened. And this test, what do you think? Do you think this test should pass or
No,
should it fail?
it should fail because we
It should
didn't.
fail, right? Because we didn't write anything in here, right?
Mhm.
Okay, the type or namespace is not, okay, this guy needs the system. Okay, now it's happy. Okay, so we have this guy. What about this one? This one also using system. The autocomplete here could use an improvement, but I think now we have a failing test in place. Okay. I like how it's highlighting the files on the left side here that it tells you, hey, there's a file with an error. That's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and run the test for this one. We should have at least one failing test. Boom, there you go. So it says, wait, no, this is not a good failing test. This guy is saying missing partial modifier on this file. So let's see which file. There's a test file that I created that doesn't have the partial thing on it. Is it this one? So this is partial. What about this one? Ah, there you go. This one needed a partial modifier in here. I'm
Mhm.
actually surprised it didn't error out. That's even more surprising because it should have errored out. Let's try the test again. Hopefully this time it'll be happy. There you go. So this one it says the time or namespace is not understood. And where is that? That's in, let's see, where's GUID? It's not here. Yeah, it
Mm,
doesn't know what GUID is, right? So let's give it using system and let's fix the copyrights here while we're at it. So okay. Try this again, Sally. Maybe this time it'll work. I don't know. Clear. Let's try this again. .NET tests. This environment is, yeah, there you go. Now we have a nice failing test. It says
Not
failed one, passed one. And why did it fail? It says the method or operation is not implemented. Great. So in order for us to commit this properly, I'm going to copy this guy here and I'm going to go and make a commit, a pure commit. So git add and then git commit dash m and then I put the method, the allow, okay, this and then uh, thin arrow like this, and then I'm gonna go and say fail. So that's my commit.
mhm.
Cool. Okay, so now I have a failing test. If I do get log, I don't know, 5, it will show me all the commits that I have, including code drops. So it said fail, pass, and then this is the last one that I have in here, which is should retrieve book by ID fail. Okay, now let's make it pass. What should we do to make this pass? Is to clear. Okay, you tell me, Sally. You're the driver. How are we gonna make this pass?
Go to the book service and make the function
Okay.
for 3.
Okay, so what do I do? Like this dot. What should I do?
Storage broker,
Storage broker dot. Okay.
retrieve,
Wait. Retrieve. Okay. Retrieve or select.
select book by.
Like book
Yeah.
by ID, and then there's ID. Like this. Do you think this would make it work? Let's see. Let's find out. So this
Re-
one is good. Huh, go ahead. Mhm.
Put the-
Repeat.
oh, okay. You didn't make the function. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
this is just a fat arrow function. It's the same thing. So doing this is exactly the same as doing this.
No, I meant you didn't make the variable like book storage. I meant to book to like
Hmm.
say book storage book
Oh, just like I did here.
storage.
Yeah, this was me breaking it down just to make things simpler to understand. But ideally, this guy would also be something like this. This dot storage broker dot insert book like this. And
But
our test.
the
Go
same,
ahead.
it is a storage book.
Huh? Repeat that.
What would be the return out of that?
This guy, whatever this guy returning, it's returning book. See, this fat arrow is a substitute for return
Mm,
because whatever comes after that, it's a
mm,
single function, fat arrow function that will return something.
I see. Okay, okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have retrieve book by ID, and this guy saying select book by ID. Okay. Let's go and try this out. So I'm gonna go and say .NET test.
But hold on. To iBook services, did we add retrieve?
Yeah, this is how we tested it. We said, hey,
Okay.
remember how when we're doing the test, we're actually identifying against iBook service. So it has to be there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to call a function and
That's
test again.
not that passed. Okay, that's why I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now this one is passing, it seems like. What do you think?
Is she?
That works.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I want you to try. Since I gave you access, let's say git add, and then git commit dash m, and then there's the function should retrieve, and this should be pass. And if I do and say git push, it should take all that stuff and push it. So if I go to my branch up in here and go to Sally's library, which is up in here, and if I go into the commits, I should see my commits right here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Should I copied the thing twice. Should retrieve book by ID, should retrieve, but it actually should retrieve book by ID. And if you go here, it'll show you the code changes and everything I did.
Mm-hmm.
So here's your assignment, my friend. Try to access this nice code space that I created here. Since you are an owner on this repo, try to go into the code area, and then instead of local and all that, just go to Codespaces and then click on this guy and let me know if you're able to access it. And then your assignment is to do the delete by ID. So people will send an ID to you, and then you're gonna delete it. You're gonna delete the item that matches this ID,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna do also the update.
Okay. Okay.
And the update is basically, and this one is going to be a little bit tricky. So I want you to kind of look at the code base, look at the ideally like add here, add and retrieve by ID are simple. But with the ID here for the delete, you're going to need to pick up that ID, go find the item first, and then pass it in for deletion. Because if you look at the storage broker in here, the storage broker, especially on the delete, it takes a book. It doesn't take an ID technically, right? Even though underneath it's actually doing this whole ID thing, it's wanting you to pass in a book, right? And maybe we could change the signature of it and just say delete by ID, but here we are. This is the stage we're in. In fact, actually, I think it might be better if we went and said something like this. The implementation is it should be remove and then book, just like this. So this is a book that you retrieve, right? And that book that you retrieve basically is what you're removing from the list. Yeah, this would be much better implementation. So git add and then git commit -m code rob change delete book implementation. Git push. Okay, Sally. So just do the delete. Try with the delete.
Okay.
We're gonna need to retrieve the item that needs to be deleted. And then after we do that, we're gonna need to basically delete that item, and it has to be test driven. So you see how I went and said write a failing test and then make it pass, just like this. Fail, pass, fail, pass. I want you to try this for the delete and for the update.
So delete by itself, not delete by ID, yeah? Or both by ID.
No, on the service, you still like on the service level, you're still saying you still want to go and say book remove by ID. And you're passing in a book ID like this, right? But underneath in the implementation, you're gonna have to go call the select function on the broker. Let me show you an example just so you can see what that looks like. Here is OSSS. Let's go to a function like API. Let's pick up a service, a foundation service, assignment service. What does the remove assignment by ID does? It basically goes and says, go find me that assignment and then pick up that assignment and delete it. Don't worry about the validation yet. We didn't really access those yet. We didn't really talk about those yet. We didn't talk about try catch and exception handling. So this and this here is basically what you want to do, but I want this to be test driven. So see if you can write a test, make it pass, and all that kind of stuff.
So the things I just trying to understand. So I haven't worked with a Git environment before. So pushing the comments. So I think with this video, I will go back and repeat you. It should be safe. Yeah.
Yes, this video, I publish these videos on YouTube, and you can definitely take a look at it. Try to see if you can access, just click that dot, and not even the dot, try to go to get spaces. You should have access to that, and let me know if it works for you. Okay? All right. Tomorrow we're gonna talk about validation, but today we just took the time to learn about, Codespace and all the cool stuff that, GitHub team is putting together to make the development experience
Thank you so
much easier. All right. Thank you so much, Sally. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you everyone for watching our videos, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Take
much.
care. Thank you. Bye.